drooling on your pillow, probably snoring, zero awareness of the world around you. You are, by every biological definition, helpless. Now, imagine you're not in your bedroom. You're in a tent, a thin piece of nylon, embarrassingly thin, separating you from a forest full of animals that could absolutely end you if they felt like it. Lions, bears, wolves, leopards. Creatures that can hear your heartbeat from across a clearing, smell you from a mile away, and see perfectly in the dark while you are just lying there with your eyes closed. And yet, you wake up in the morning every single time. Why? Seriously, think about this for a second. A sleeping human is just meat. Slow meat. Quiet meat. Meat that cannot fight back, cannot run, and can barely even register that something is happening until it is already happening. You would think predators would be circling campsites every night like some kind of all-you-can-eat buffet. But they are not. They almost never are. And the reason they are not is not just one thing. It is never just one thing. There are several layered explanations, each one more fascinating than the last. Together, they paint a picture of a strange, invisible agreement between humans and the wild. An agreement that goes back further than civilization, further than agriculture, further than anything we normally think of as human history. This goes deep into the ancient knowledge of our planet. Let's break it down. Start with the thing that sounds like an ego trip, but is actually just biology. You are terrifying. Not you specifically. You, right now, reading or watching this, are probably fine, normal, not particularly scary. But humans as a species? To predators, we are genuinely, deeply, evolutionarily frightening. Not in a way that is obvious from looking at us. We do not have claws. We are not fast. We are not particularly strong for our size. We cannot even see well in the dark. On paper, we are kind of a disaster as an animal. And yet, a study published in 2019 by researchers at UC Santa Cruz found something remarkable. They played audio recordings of human voices near mountain lions, also known as pumas or cougars, in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California. Normal human voices. People just talking. And the pumas fled. They fled at the same rate they fled from the sound of dogs barking, and in many cases, even faster. These are apex predators that take down full-grown deer like it is nothing. Animals that can drag a kill up a steep hill. Animals that are objectively absolute units of predatory efficiency. And they heard a podcast and ran. That was not a one-off result. The same research showed that pumas abandoned food. Food they had already killed, food they were in the process of eating, when they heard human voices nearby. They left their meal on the ground and moved away from the sound. From a survival standpoint, that is an enormous cost. A predator giving up a kill is basically working for free. The calories burned to make that kill do not get replenished. And they still did it because the discomfort of being near humans outweighed the cost of hunger. That result confirmed something biologists had been noticing across multiple continents and multiple species for a long time. Lions in Africa's Kruger National Park reduce their movement in areas with higher human activity. Tigers in India give wide berths to villages, even when those villages sit in the middle of prime habitat. Jaguars in the Amazon have adjusted their movement patterns to avoid locations where humans are regularly present. These are not animals that are physically incapable of attacking. They are animals that have decided, at a species level, over thousands of generations, that being near us is simply not worth it. And the reason for that is one of the most brutal facts in natural history. We have been hunting and killing large predators for so long, and so effectively, that we have literally shaped their genetics. Think about the scope of that. Humans have been active predators for somewhere around 2 million years. We hunted mammoths out of existence. We wiped megafauna off entire continents. Giant sloths, woolly rhinos, saber-toothed cats, cave bears. Species that had survived ice ages vanished within thousands of years of humans arriving in their territories. In North America, we hunted wolves to near extinction across the entire continental landmass. We eliminated mountain lions from the entire eastern half of the continent. We shot, trapped, and poisoned predators so systematically, and for so long, that the ones alive today are descended from the animals that were most careful around us. That is not a metaphor. That is natural selection. The lions that approached human camps too boldly got killed. The wolves that preyed on human settlements got hunted down. The predators that kept their distance, that treated humans as something to avoid rather than something to engage with, they survived. They reproduced. They passed that inherited caution to their offspring. Over thousands of years and thousands of generations, that caution became biological. It became instinct. It became the baseline behavior of every large predator that shares space with humans today. So, when a leopard picks up your scent in the night, somewhere deep in its nervous system, a very old alarm goes off. Not a conscious thought exactly. It is not sitting there thinking about human history, but it is an ancient, wired-in, inherited signal that says, be careful around that thing. Do not engage. Move on. That alarm has been passed down from every ancestor of that leopard that survived a close encounter with ancient humans. It is a biological memory, and it runs deep. Now, let's talk about your smell. You have probably never really thought about how you smell because you are surrounded by other humans all the time, and you have normalized it completely. But to a predator operating with a nose that is anywhere from 10 times to 100,000 times more sensitive than yours, depending on the species, you are broadcasting an enormous, detailed, and deeply strange chemical signal. Bears have a sense of smell estimated to be about 7 times stronger than a bloodhound's. Wolves can detect scents from nearly 2 miles away under the right conditions. Big cats have a specialized organ in the roof of their mouths, the Jacobson's organ, that essentially lets them taste the air and analyze chemical information at a level we can barely imagine. When these animals encounter a sleeping human, they are receiving a flood of olfactory data. And a lot of that data is just wrong. You smell wrong. You smell like synthetic fabrics, like nylon and polyester and whatever chemicals were used in the manufacturing process. You smell like processed food, the meal you ate hours ago, the snacks in your bag. You smell like soap and shampoo and sunscreen and insect repellent. A cocktail of artificial compounds that has no analog anywhere in the natural world. Beneath all of that, underneath the layers of modern human life, you smell like a primate, which is something, but it is not the thing. Not the deer or the wildebeest or the rabbit that these predators have evolved over millions of years to recognize and hunt. A predator's hunting instinct is not generic. It is not a vague desire to kill anything that moves. It is a finely tuned system calibrated to specific prey. A wolf's predatory response is triggered by the movement patterns and pheromones of ungulates. A lion's strike mechanism is activated by the shape and speed and smell of animals it has hunted thousands of times. You do not fit the pattern. You are not in the system. You are an anomaly. And anomalies trigger caution rather than aggression in most predators. There is also the campfire effect, which is one of the most underrated things ancient humans ever figured out. Fire is one of the only stimuli that produces a near-universal fear response across virtually all land animals. It is not a learned behavior. It is not something animals figure out from experience. It is innate. It is ancient. Animals that were afraid of fire in the wild survived wildfires by running. Animals that were not afraid of fire did not. The fear is so deeply embedded that laboratory-raised animals who have never been near fire in their lives will show avoidance behavior at the smell of smoke. It goes that deep into the evolutionary code. Humans discovered fire somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago. And for most of that time, sleeping next to a fire has been standard operating procedure. We were not doing it just for warmth or to cook. We were doing it, maybe without knowing it consciously, because it works as a repellent. A campfire does not just keep you warm. It broadcasts a signal into the surrounding dark that says something dangerous is here, something that controls fire, something that should be avoided. The predators got that message, and they have been getting it for so long that the message does not even need to be decoded anymore. It just triggers avoidance automatically. You figured that out before you figured out farming, before you figured out pottery or writing or architecture. Fire first. Smart move, honestly. Now, let's tackle the biggest myth about predators, because movies have spent decades getting this completely wrong. Predators are not reckless. This is so important. The image of the apex predator as this fearless, unstoppable killing machine that attacks anything within range is pure fiction. In reality, large predators are extraordinarily careful about what they engage with because they have to be. A lion does not have health insurance. A wolf does not have sick days. One serious injury, a broken leg, a deep bite wound, a damaged eye, can mean a slow death by starvation. In the wild, injuries don't heal at the vet. They either heal on their own while the animal somehow still has to eat and hunt, or they don't heal, and the animal dies. This means every single decision a predator makes about whether to engage with something is a rigorous survival calculation. Is the caloric value of this target worth the risk of injury? Is this prey item familiar enough that I know exactly how it will behave? Is the chance of a successful hunt high enough to justify the massive energy expenditure? A sleeping human fails this calculation in multiple, glaring ways. First, there is the problem of unfamiliarity and unpredictability. A predator is most confident attacking prey it knows intimately. It has watched that prey animal hundreds of times. It knows how a zebra runs, where its blind spots are, how it kicks when it panics. It absolutely does not know how a human will respond. Humans are wildly unpredictable. We might wake up screaming. We might thrash in completely unexpected ways. We might have strange, sharp tools nearby. We might have other humans nearby who will instantly respond with coordinated violence. For a predator trying to minimize risk, that level of uncertainty is a massive red flag. Second, there is the size question. Humans, when they stand up, are actually pretty big. We are tall, upright, and our bipedal posture, standing on two legs, makes us appear much larger and more imposing than most prey animals of equivalent weight. Researchers studying predator-prey dynamics have long noted that bipedalism is itself a kind of threat display. Standing upright is what gorillas do when they want to intimidate a rival. It is what bears do when they want to look threatening. A creature that walks around like that all the time, as its default mode of transportation, reads as inherently assertive to other animals. Even asleep, the silhouette of a human shape, stretched out completely, is unusual in a way that just doesn't scream, easy meal. In the animal kingdom, lying totally flat on your back with your softest, most vulnerable parts exposed is something usually only done by dead animals. And dead animals in the wild are biological hazards, full of disease and parasites. We don't look like fresh prey. We look like a trap or a biohazard. Third, and maybe most importantly, why bother? There are almost always easier, safer options. A predator with a healthy territory and a functional ecosystem has access to prey it is comfortable hunting. Prey that perfectly fits its biological template. Going after something strange, unknown, and potentially highly dangerous when there is a perfectly available impala, deer, or rabbit in the vicinity makes absolutely no sense from an evolutionary or survival standpoint. The risk-reward math just does not work out. But there is something else that almost never comes up in these conversations, and it changes everything. Your sleep is not nearly as deep as you think it is. This is actually one of the more astonishing things about human biology. We experience sleep in cycles. You go down into deep, slow-wave sleep, and then you come back up into lighter stages, including REM sleep, where your brain is actually incredibly active. During those lighter stages, researchers have found that your brain remains surprisingly responsive to the environment around you. External sounds still get processed. Unfamiliar noises are significantly more likely to break through into your conscious awareness than familiar ones. Scientists call this the sentinel function of sleep. The idea is that even while resting, animals, including humans, maintain a partial, subconscious watch on the environment. Your brain, during light sleep stages, is actively filtering sensory input and flagging things that seem unusual or threatening. A twig snapping loudly nearby. The sound of a large animal moving heavily through the brush. A sudden change in the air pressure or a strange smell that comes with something large approaching. These anomalies can pull you toward waking much faster than you might expect. This is not an accident. The ancient humans in our evolutionary history who slept too deeply, who were completely unresponsive to nighttime threats, were more likely to not wake up at all. They were removed from the gene pool. The lighter sleepers, the ones who could go from completely asleep to on their feet with a weapon in their hands in a matter of seconds, were the ones who survived and reproduced. Over hundreds of thousands of years, human sleep was finely tuned to stay light enough to respond to threats. We actually sleep lighter and in shorter, more fragmented cycles than most large mammals. Partly, this is because our evolutionary legacy assumed there would always be things in the dark worth waking up for. So, while you might feel completely helpless when you are unconscious, you are actually running a highly sophisticated, evolutionary early warning system. It is not perfect, and it is not foolproof, but it is present and active. And then, there is the group factor. The ultimate defense. Humans are almost never actually alone when they camp in the wild. We are ultra-social creatures. We travel in groups, we sleep in groups, and, crucially, those groups respond collectively. Predators across the animal kingdom understand group dynamics at a deep, instinctual level because their normal prey animals also form groups. A wildebeest in the middle of a herd is exponentially safer than a wildebeest at the edge. A fish in the center of a school is much harder to target than one that has been separated. Predators do not just blindly attack prey, they hunt for separation. They look for the isolated individual, the one that has fallen behind, the one that has been cut off from the safety of the group. A camp full of sleeping humans is a group. And it is not just any group. It is a highly communicative, lethal superorganism. Due to natural variations in human chronotypes, the fact that some people are naturally night owls and others are early birds, it was statistically rare for an entire ancient tribe to be in deep sleep at the exact same moment. Someone was always shifting, tending the fire, or lightly dozing. If a predator makes a mistake, if it snaps a branch or disturbs the brush, and one member wakes up and makes noise, they will immediately wake up the others. That collective, coordinated response is deeply unappealing to a predator trying to make a clean, low-risk kill. The risk of a hunt going wrong, of turning into a chaotic group defense situation where the prey suddenly starts throwing fire and sharp rocks, is exactly the kind of nightmare scenario predators are evolved to avoid. Now, let's be honest about something, because this video would be irresponsible if it wasn't. None of this means you are absolutely untouchable. The attacks that do happen, and they do happen, follow a very consistent pattern. They almost always involve circumstances that have broken the normal rules of the wild. When does a predator attack a human? Usually, it is a predator that is injured and physically cannot hunt its normal, faster prey. Or a predator that is starving because its natural habitat has been destroyed and its usual food sources are completely gone. Or, increasingly common today, a predator that has had so much contact with humans that it has lost its inherited wariness. This happens disturbingly fast when wild animals are fed by tourists or come to associate human presence with an easy food source rather than a lethal danger. Finally, it can be a predator that is simply old and desperate, past its physical prime, unable to catch the agile prey it used to hunt. The lions of Tsavo in Kenya are perhaps the most famous example in history. In 1898, 2 male lions attacked and killed dozens of railway workers over the course of about 9 months. The historical records disagree on the exact number, and the legend certainly grew in the retelling. But what is incredibly important, and often left out of the terrifying movies, is that these were unusual lions. Both were maneless, which is atypical for the region, and later analysis of their skulls revealed that one had severe dental damage, a massive root infection. This excruciating pain and physical limitation likely made its normal, struggling prey much harder to hunt. These were not representative of normal lion behavior. They were exceptions, created by exceptional and desperate circumstances. The Champavat tiger, responsible for an estimated 436 deaths in India and Nepal in the early 1900s, follows the exact same dark pattern. When the famous hunter Jim Corbett finally brought the animal down, he found that it had been shot in the mouth at some earlier point in its life, shattering 2 of its critical canine teeth. It could no longer hunt its natural prey effectively. It had been pushed by human-inflicted injury, and then by severe habitat encroachment, into hunting the only prey that was consistently available, slow, and physically manageable: us. This pattern repeats across almost every single documented case of large predator attacks on humans in camp or at rest. Something broke. The normal calculation changed. The deeply inherited caution got completely overridden by starvation or desperation, which means the biological rule holds almost universally. In conditions where the ecosystem is intact, the predator is healthy, and the humans haven't done something to scramble the normal signals, like leaving food out, approaching the wildlife, or eliminating the campfire because it seemed unnecessary. You are safe. There is one last layer to this, and I saved it for the end because it is genuinely the most mind-bending part of this entire evolutionary story. We have been so brutally effective at making the natural world afraid of us that it is now causing massive ecological shifts that we didn't even anticipate. That same 2019 UC Santa Cruz study didn't just document that pumas are afraid of human voices. It documented that this human-induced fear cascades through the entire food web in ways that are difficult to fully comprehend. When pumas avoid areas where humans are active, the deer in those areas face significantly reduced predation pressure. The deer populations in those zones rapidly increase. That increased deer population then overgrazes the local vegetation, altering the plant life. Meanwhile, medium-sized predators, coyotes, bobcats, foxes, also reduce their presence near humans, which means the rodent populations they normally control start expanding uncontrollably. Everything shifts, and it shifts purely because of us, because of our mere presence, because the fear we have generated over millennia radiates outward through the ecosystem like an invisible, acoustic, and chemical signal. We change the behavior of every single predator layer on the continent without ever directly interacting with most of those animals. Just by being there. Just by being the thing that evolution told them to be terrified of. One species, one inherited fear, ripples across the entire living world, altering the balance of nature. The most dangerous, apex animal on the planet is the one that figured out fire before it figured out everything else. The one that has been shaping ecosystems, not just through what it eats, but through what it makes other things afraid to eat. The one that sleeps light, travels in highly coordinated groups, and carries 10,000 generations of successful, brutal survival in its DNA. That's you. That is what you are. So yeah, the next time you are lying in a tent in the middle of nowhere, listening to the vast sounds of the dark beyond the thin nylon wall, and you feel that little pulse of ancient, primal anxiety in your chest, that is perfectly fine. That feeling is exactly what kept your ancestors alive. But the thing outside